Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Middle Ground, Mike. We got a great guest here today, Damien. How are you doing today?
Good, Joe. How you doing?
It's another day in paradise. That's what I always say at work. Like we were talking about, hey, we're all about kind of the clarity, the chaos, getting clarity in the chaos. I should say that, connection,
Yeah,
conversation, and, you know,
yeah,
diving deep into some of the things that, you're passionate about, because I feel like, your thought process kind of follows the theme of the podcast, right? Like kind of just finding that there's a spot for everybody's voice
that's
that
good.
that
Yeah,
came across. And I'm like, and I'm not gonna lie, you got Anne Rand on there, and she's one of my favorites.
really.
Oh
Okay,
yeah,
so it's hard to know what people are going to say when they say her names. Could be a love or a hate thing.
yeah,
One of the.
big Thomas Sowell fan too, man.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Tom. So yeah, definitely for me too.
He's a great man. He's
Yeah,
definitely opinionated. We'll put it like that.
yeah. I, that's a good thing. Sometimes
Oh
you
yeah,
need
for
more of
sure,
that. You
for
know,
sure.
just to. It's about what do you root your opinions in? I guess that's my what I'm more focused on. What are your
Oh yeah,
opinions rooted in?
yeah. So give everybody a little bit of a breakdown of you.
Okay. Yeah. So Damien DeBose Damien Terrence DeBose, originally from Baltimore. Actually, I'm back in Baltimore now. Was in DC for a while. I'm a financial professional by trade, but essentially, at some point in time, I started to get more into kind of when I was finishing my master's. I got more into like philosophy and psychology, and it's just something I just started to pick up later in life. I had an interest in it. I mean, I've always liked psychology, psychological profiles since I was younger. It just helped me understand people in I guess, an intellectual way, which is helpful to me. And so as I started to read more things, I started to see overlaps in certain, I guess, what we call disciplines of philosophy and psychology. And the way that they explain people or even like governance or politics. The two schools I came across explained it in a similar way. It wasn't the same, but I thought that wow, if we were to connect these two worlds, it would be much more clarifying and help people have some type of standard basis for specifically American society. So my book is America's Ethical Archetype, and it's establishing the psychology of moral authority and correcting our country's broken politics. And essentially what the book is about intellectual leaders, leadership in America, specific for America, what the principles, the foundation of America is built on, and how we can identify, isolate, and execute on those principles. And what I try to do is give people an argument, like ammunition to defend those principles instead of like running and hiding, like you might see many people do, or speaking on it from a place of ignorance a lot of times. So,
Like a part of like what like name we dropped is you pull from Anne Rand's like objectivism, right?
right,
So
exactly.
how do those two traditions for like what you talking like her like how does all that flow together for you?
So, in objectivism, I mean, I've read a lot of Rand, and she talks about some psychological concepts when she starts talking, and her terminology is psychoepistemology. What she talks about is basically the a person's interactions with their conscious and subconscious mind. That was something that was brewing in me. And I mean, it's very helpful to understand. And the way that Rand presents it is in a very philosophical way. So she's talking about politics and ethics. And so that's one side of it. But when I came across, and the other person in the book that I focus on is Carl Jung. And I came across his system where he talks about very similar concepts, but he, these two don't match. Like they didn't come up with these things together, but I can see the through line in them. Essentially what it is just, a person. Carl Jung splits a person kind of like into different cognitive functions is what he calls them. And it's just that I saw her work and his work in a way where I can get them to overlap and I can explain politics from a psychological point of view and I could explain psychology as a result of I mean, I could explain politics as a result of psychological outlooks. Those are the two kind of like a general understanding of what I was trying to do in the book.
So, kind of off topic, how would you put like what this show would align, just like out of pure curiosity, right? How this show's like idea would align with like how your book goes, like just maybe like some perspective,
So I don't know if I could grade a show, right? I think what
like the idea behind it, I guess.
yeah, I mean, meeting in the middle. I understand why people want to get there because one of the major things that comes out of the book is there are classic ways of approaching life psychologically slash philosophically. And many, if any people are familiar, you may have heard the term empiricism or rationalism. And a lot of times there's an argument between these schools of thought, whereas this one thinks that they're right and the other thinks that they're right. But the middle ground to me is similar to what I would consider an integrated point of view, which means that there is no one side or the other. They're both correct, you know. But what I try to do with the psychology piece is to say, basically, I'm tracing or I'm regressing it back to the source or going back to the source to say, no, actually, one of these things comes first. And it's very helpful to know which one comes first, even though we have to use our understanding of both points of views. So that's to get to the point. Yes, an integrated point of view is a healthy point of view, but how do we get to the middle ground or integrating both sides?
Yeah, that's the tough
That's
part
important.
is finding. I talk sometimes about people forget that even how our country was founded, right, was the Great Compromise.
Mm.
Things weren't very good back then, but they called it the Great Compromise, to kind of get everybody to go, okay, we'll figure our problems out later, but we're going to compromise to get something done, and not that anything back then was perfect, because obviously nowhere near it, but I think it's like that art of it has gotten lost. The art of willing
Yeah.
to put certain things aside in order for the greater.
Yeah, I think so. This is kind of fast forwarding a little bit. I think what we're losing. So let me take a step back. I think what's happening is because we're dealing with evolution and time is on a continue. And there's been these evolutions throughout history that the last period was like this, but that doesn't really say anything or much about the next period. How was the next period going to be? And the reason why I say that is that I think that we're existing, especially in America, in a rational society that's built around the individual on those premises, but we really haven't educated future generations to deal with that because that's so different than the history of the world. And people don't really pay attention to that to say, no, we're actually dealing with problems that didn't really exist before, and we're not preparing the future generations to be able to make those decisions. And just for one example, I mean, like I stay in tune with a lot of relationship talk or just things about individualism or philosophy. What I hear constantly is that, we need to get back to relationships, get back to relationships. Relationships for someone 300, 200, 400 years ago is different. Like you didn't have a choice but to have relationships. But now when you have choice and you have individualism, you you have to intentionally create your relationships. And a lot of this book is based on values and it's not about, the old style of just I mean, I guess conceding to everything to what's going on around. It's
Right. No.
about going forward and making choices to say, no, these are the values that I associate with. These are the connections that I want to make. So I'll stop right there because I don't want to muddy the water. But that's a lot of what this book is about.
Yeah. That's kind of what I see sometimes. I'm like, kind of like building off of that is I'm not like anti social media. Obviously, I'm online, right? I don't know. I'm 41, right? Well, going to be 41. Growing up back then, like you had to connect to people. I mean, there was the internet back then, but it wasn't like it is now. It was pretty simplified, and then, unless your buddy was kind of a nerd like you, he obviously probably didn't know what a chat room was. I did, but you were forced in. there's just something different about when you build connections with people, when you're doing it
Mhm.
like that in person, that little tweak in the tone, the eyebrow change, just those little things that you get to know about somebody over time, and then, like, I guess kind of going to old cliche, breaking bread with someone, you
Okay,
know,
that's fair.
that
Yeah.
that was a way, even if you didn't agree with your neighbor, that breaking the bread kind of got you to understand them. Like, even if you guys didn't agree on something, if you were home, they watched your house, vice versa. Even
Mhm.
if you weren't the bestest of friends, you trusted that guy.
Forming trust, forming social equity,
Yeah, like,
stuff
and
like that.
and that's what I think as a society, because the internet's new, right? Nothing like this ever before in human history.
Yeah.
So we're trying to figure out how to have that natural human aspect that everybody needs to some degree.
True. I mean, but even before the internet, like this was always so well, this is one of Rand's points, even when she was writing in the 60s. It's just that this was needed, always needed, before the internet was widespread. It was just that there is, and I don't want to skip over, but the intellectual leaders of the society are supposed to help people make these steps, right? And I just don't think that we have those figures in society who help us do that. They're not teaching us how to create rational connections with each other. It's almost like a regression. It's not an evolution or a progression. It's a regression. It's just, oh, you know, it's not. We're not teaching people how to use what I would call, and this is the book is very about rational capabilities, and so we're not teaching people how to do that and what that consists of. And so one of the things is just that America sits on these rational principles, and regardless of how it might have been derived, when you go back and you pull it apart and unpack it, there are philosophical, like when they started it, they put a flag in the ground. And basically they took a fundamental choice and they made a country out of a fundamental choice. And so you can say, no, I want to have a different way of life. Maybe I want to try socialism or maybe I want to try communism. That's opposite of the fundamental choice that was made here in this country. And people don't really understand, like, all of these things go together. Looking at things from the individual point of view, looking at things from a rational point of view, individual rights. This is the only way you can arrive at individual rights, from an intellectual philosophical standpoint,
Yeah,
is to do that.
individual rights are something that I think is the concept is kind of lost, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
back
there
now.
we
I
go.
was frozen for a while.
Oh, okay, there we go. But yeah, I'll be able to edit that out. But individual rights are a concept that's kind of lost because, like I say, like during COVID, it seemed like before COVID, I always remember growing up, it was always the people on the left are crazy anti-vaxxers, just, oh, it was always, I heard things like that, right? Now it's like completely flipped,
Mm,
like, and it's crazy. Like, obviously, you're a student of history, you know,
somewhat.
and in the 60s or 50s or 60s, they say there was that great flip, where the parties kind of
Yeah,
changed. I
yeah.
feel like, I personally feel like we're kind of going through that. And then with everything else has going on, I think is part of what's contributing to what Obama and Bush called tribal politics.
Well, yeah. I mean, absolutely. This is why I don't really see much difference in the political parties because it's all tribal. I mean, it rests on how many people do you have in your group, and if you have more power, then we can force other people to do what we want. And that is not the correct way to run American government. And I just want to say that in plain language. That's just not how you should do this. And I give my reasons. I go all the way back to the psychology of how people identify with groups and how they lose themselves
Yes.
in the identity. And that's how you become a tribal and that's how you become collective. And that's why you lose the distinctions and differences between things. But all of these things they go together. I don't I I, I understand political commentary and talking, but I've gotten away from the right and the left, the blue and the red, because I think it's both tribal and I don't. agree. I'm not gonna say I don't agree with any of it. It's just that I think about going in a positive direction. I don't think about reacting to others. I think about what should we do and let's set that path. Not what is that person doing wrong and what is that person doing wrong. I don't
Yes.
like thinking like that.
I say this at work all the time. I say, I can find a crew person or a customer to tell me what's wrong. We pay leaders to help us find solutions and to fix problems.
Exactly.
That's what we pay managers for. And it's not a dig at anybody. If any of my managers are listening to me that work for me, it's just,
Mhm.
but like that's the methodology I go by, right? Because the customer's going to tell you if you're messing up. Crew
Right.
member's going to tell you if a manager's, it's our job to come up with solutions if you're a leader. Like
Right.
that's the whole point of you, to make sure there's order and solutions, because the
Exactly.
dynamics change, and you got to be, one thing they always kind of taught me as I came up is you got to wear different hats for different people, right? Because everybody's personalities are different.
True. I
Doesn't
get
mean you
that.
change who you are, but you got to be able to function with somebody who's not like you.
I get that. I totally
and
get that.
and I feel like, kind of like, that's where, like, a lot of what you are going after will teach a lot of people, like,
That's
hey,
the goal.
yeah, and that's what we need. Like, we've got to figure out how to make that the mainstream thought, and all this extremist stuff that's going on both sides. Like, the nobody wants to talk about that type of thing. Like, we want to focus on how we're being positive, right? Like a Ronald Reagan presence. No, I'm not saying necessarily, but like that. He always tried to exude that positive. Like, yes, America, we're gonna have a better tomorrow. Like, I just feel like that's missing, because all we do right now is go, well, that guy looked the wrong way. Everything's gonna go to hell in a handbasket now.
Yeah. I mean, I think that there are human tendencies that contribute to people doing that. I mean, for one, the negative stuff gets you clicks. It can get you paid,
But
So
yeah,
the thing that and so the way markets work and, this is going to be talking about my book talks about capitalism a lot in there as well. But I don't put all of that responsibility. I don't put the responsibility of society on everybody. I put it on the leaders, the people who step up, the people who say what we should do. I think that there are people who are just going to look out for their little patch, and I think it's perfectly fine for people to do that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if that's the mindset that you have, I don't want to hear about your ideas of what everyone else should do if you're only looking at it from your perspective. Your perspective doesn't qualify for what we need to do for a full society.
right. Yeah, no, and that's key. Like, that's very, very key. They So how would you speak, per se, to someone who feels like completely disillusioned, right, by the institutions, but they don't know how to replace them with, right? You're like, the psychology aspect that you're talking about, and just how would you, like, get someone, when someone's disillusioned, right? It's like that person's got to work 15 times harder to get back to where they want to be. It's not as easy as when they learned it the first time. So
Yeah.
how would, like, your path, like, kind of help them, guide them to where you want to go?
So I would probably break this down in a couple pieces. So for one, I look at being cooperative. I don't think that one person should wear all of the hats. That's not how I see society. There are people like I always like joke with people I talk to about this. It's not a joke, but I want to teach the person who teaches the person who teaches the person who teaches the person. That's kind of how I look at it. And on the other part of it is that the big ideas that I want to help bring forward are the ones that set the tone at a young age in education because that is where your brain is most spongy. That is where you get a lot of your instincts, a lot of the things that you don't even think about at your root are set in your early like 1 to 8 or something like 1 to 5 or around there, before 10 or before 12. Um, that's just those 2 areas, I mean, well, that's just 2 things to call out. Because, like, even I would say, like, my wife, she's not from America. We talk about because she's from, like, Eastern culture. And when we talk about things, there's some things that are embedded in me that I wouldn't even recognize that I know, or that my my perspective is rooted in the American culture. It's all about how can we teach people to be self-sufficient. It's not always like that everywhere you go. It's not teachers 1 year old, 2 year old how to walk, how to do for themselves, how to go to the store, how to do these all these things. It's not, and for me, you can take it for granted because you don't understand that, oh wow, this whole culture was built around individuals and helping individuals be grow to their full potential. Whereas though it's not always like that everywhere you are. Just to set that, I just wanted to bring that story in to say that's part of teaching children, in that way they can internalize some of the principles that we've already like validated and put under scrutiny instead of having everybody question everything. Well, is it right to be individuals? Should we be collective? Should we be communist? Should we be no, no, I'm not doing any of that stuff. And so what's the
Right.
purpose of me learning that? I mean, I might can learn about it, but America's an idea that refuted it. That's the idea that it refuted. I'm not. It's, I don't want to start rambling, but all of these things kind of go together.
Yeah. Like so, like touching on that, what's a habit that people could like try to adopt, try to like work on to kind of help them get to that integrated ethical mindset, I should say.
Okay, so the way I did it in the book, I kind of just introduced the history, that the ideas that I go through. The difference, well, the connection between psychology and philosophy. Then I set forth a path that I'm saying that we should go. And then at the end, I have a section called application. And in this application section, it's about how to apply the ideas that I presented in the beginning. And one of the things to me, that's one of the simpler things, is the whole idea of sacrifice. People talk about sacrifice, and even you brought up compromise, and I put compromise in there as well. Sacrifice, and I know this is like counterintuitive to a lot of people. The concepts of sacrifice and compromise are irrational concepts. They're not rational concepts. Investment, because investment turns everything into an intentional action. So there's no loss. So a sacrifice is a loss. A compromise is a loss. But an investment is okay, I see what I need to do to get what I want. I have to take this money now and invest it for a future benefit. I'm not sacrificing my startup costs. That's not a sacrifice. That's not a compromise. It's I have a goal and this is what I'm willing to forego for now for a better tomorrow. And if we were just to say, if you were to, I try to focus on simple steps. If we were to say, we'll never say the words compromise or sacrifice ever again, and we would insert the word invest every time, that's one step, one simple step. And that's just helping people think about life a little bit differently.
Yeah, no, and that would definitely be like I guess I didn't really think about it like that. That's
Makes it intentional.
that, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that really like kind of just because I was talking about compromise, that definitely made me think about it a little bit different. Like kind of like talking about that, like right, like talking like invest, right? Do you think like Americans can't even agree on investing in themselves or what truth or good means?
So I think that's what the thinkers help to do. I don't think, even if the thinkers do present a good case, does not, nobody really knows individually until they grasp it for themselves. So I think we can present a good case, but I also think that's what individualism is about, and individual freedom and rights. It's like you have the right to go figure it out yourself. If you go and you find a different way that's better, good for you. I'm going to tip my hat, and I probably might, you know, take your idea and do something with it. Until that, I just think that we have good ideas. I just think that people just don't like the responsibility that goes along with choice. They don't like that. They want the choice, but they don't want the consequences of failing with their choices. And
Yeah,
so,
ironic part you say about that is me and my bosses were talking, we're talking about like redoing the management structure of our, like at our store level, right? Like, what do you think if we went back to having like assistant managers instead of department managers? Because that's kind of how it was when I was coming up through the pipeline. But back then, if you were the assistant manager, if your general manager wasn't there, everything is on you. You fail a visit, something goes wrong, you're the one that's responsible. Like, this is your problem.
Right.
And
Ownership.
now kind of how we have so many people that are in charge, however you want to call it, right? They pass
Mhm.
that buck on. Well, I told so and so, do out the door. Whereas if
Yeah.
you have two people that are kind of like boom boom, like 1A, 1B, now all of a sudden you got two people that are at least somewhat in kind of an alignment going, all right, boom, 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 and it's about eliminating that. I don't want to say passing a buck, right, but not taking responsibility for what you got to do.
Yeah.
And when you put someone, you give them a little bit more of a leadership role instead of just kind of a leadership role, they're going to take a lot more responsibility for the store.
It's ownership. At the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
ownership. Um, as you were talking, it's interesting. So if you're an Iron Man fan, I don't know if you read Atlas Shrugged. That's the tunnel scene. That's the tunnel scene when they're going through the tunnel and they got to switch the tracks, and it's a lot of calls being made and a lot of bucks being passed.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy when you really start digging into it. How much like everybody just kind of goes, they did it, they did it,
Yeah, I mean, but
and it's like it's there, but until you really like dive into it, like you're like, man, something that I thought was like this good positive thing was just passing the buck off on someone else, so they weren't responsible.
yeah, I mean, but I think that that is in all of us,
Oh yeah,
right? And I think the whole idea of leadership and ownership, I try to always think about this within the context of human history. That is something that nobody, if you were born in the woods, you wouldn't know what that was. You wouldn't
very
you
true.
wouldn't know what ownership was. You wouldn't know what responsibility. It wouldn't even be a part of your psychological existence. It wouldn't trigger anxiety in you the way that it triggers for some people, like to not have their own but not take care of themselves. People have this internal pressure that they put on themselves because of the way we've been socialized and brought up in a culture. So just all of those, the whole idea of responsibility and all of that, you have to support that with education, because that's just not
Yes,
something that comes from nature. It doesn't come from nature per,
yeah,
per
it's something
se.
that you got to learn.
Yeah,
Touch on something maybe it's a little bit lighter hearted per se. Are you a sports fan? I'm guessing you might be a Ravens fan.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Listen, man, your Ravens womp on my Lions every time we play. My Lions went, I think, 12-5 that year, and that Ravens game, you'd have been like, really, that was 12-5 team out there because they looked like it was like the 0-16 Lions, man.
man.
Lamar Jackson, every time he plays Lions, just runs right over them like it's nothing, and I'm just going, the guy's gonna run it. I'd rather get burned by a passing touchdown and making sure he doesn't take off on me.
I mean, I can't even say that that's so. I used to be more of a sports fan. I've scaled back a while bit since I felt like politics was too much in sports. But I don't think that's it. I just think he's just the best dual threat quarterback that ever has been. I just
Yeah,
don't think
yeah, that's
he's
he
not
makes
just a
him.
runner.
Yeah, he makes Michael Vick. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like his. I'd rather him beat me with a passing touchdown than his
Mhm.
legs. Because if I can just make him stay back there and not let him get past me, I got a better chance. Because if he gets past you, man, he's fast. You ain't catching him. He's gonna walk right by you.
Yeah, I don't know. I think touchdowns in the air come faster than touchdown grounds on the ground. So I think I might.
He's a. I'm trying to think of best, and he's a really smart and good guy too. Just from seeing on TV the things he does with kids. And he's just a great guy. The world needs more people like that. That's not taking his fame and he didn't like change and become a jerk. He's still that humble
Yeah.
guy that wants to be around people, and it's a good thing. That's a good thing because man, let me tell you, I've been the Lions have been the bane of my existence and one of my loves of my life for my whole life. And up until the last 2 years, man, every Sunday you're just sitting there. You knew by halftime what was going to happen most days,
Yeah.
and that's just you shouldn't be able to know that about your sports team.
Yeah, I mean, I used to. I liked the Lions before we had a team in Baltimore, but it's
Why we got Barry
Yes,
Sanders, man. Barry Sanders
man,
just he would like hit
Barry
a guy and
Sanders.
bounce off him somehow and just start running the other way. And I met
Yeah,
him 6 or 7 years ago. I used to have season tickets up until this year, and he was like the nicest guy on the freaking planet. I mean, he's just cool, chill, relaxed. They invited a bunch of season ticket holders, and like the little dinner thing and all that. It was pretty cool. I mean, he's a lot shorter than I thought he would be.
he's about
You
what,
know, I
five
was like,
seven, right?
yeah, I mean, but I guess I don't know. I just expected him to be a little bit more, I don't know, bigger, like tall wise. I knew but it's just, like, I guess I was expecting it. He's not
Yeah,
that much at the time, wasn't that much, taller than my son. And I'm like, man, my son's like 9, like a tower over you.
yeah. That's how you keep the low center of gravity, I guess.
Right. But yeah, so like, a call to action, like what would for you be to just people in general, like a call to action that would actually get them like, kind of like we were talking like a habit, but like what do you think that they can do to really help integrate what you're talking about? Like, so okay, if you've got the habit of, all right, I'm going to be, let's just say, inclusive, or I'm going to try to be understanding, making a sacrifice for this, trying to better myself with that. Like, what's that call to action or the thought process to get to where they may need to be for that call of action, right? Like some key things that they may need.
I mean, so like I said, this book is aimed toward leaders, and so it's not that call to action is not really for the layman. I do have the application section, and like what I said to you earlier about that one simple step of intentionality and not being a sacrifice, but being an investment. Those are the small types of steps that I think that anybody can take on. And the other one is just choice. And I don't think that I think this is more of a leader of society position because I don't know how easy it is for people to take this on themselves. I think they would probably need help from the society or it's from education and from politics or government as well. But everything to me comes down to choice. When we're talking about interacting with each other, everything rests on the basis of choice. If people can internalize that and understand that choice comes with consequence, I know that's a lot. It seems like a simple thing to me, but I don't think that people really can internalize that as much as something simple like a habit, like, okay, don't use this word. Don't use the word compromise. Don't use the word sacrifice. Like that to me is one of the simpler steps that I can present to people. Use the word invest every time. And then that way, through that repetition, I think it will change something in your mind psychologically and help people take that step. But the majority of the steps that are presented in this book are really for intellectuals and leaders to say, what are you doing? Like, we know that this is wrong, or we know that this is right. Why is there so much debate? Why, if the argument is, oh, you people over there are so uneducated and you don't know anything, then why when I bring up arguments that's rooted in psychology or philosophy or higher learning, why are you still contradicting on that too? Like, you don't really want all of this. You keep saying that you want education. No, you just want your way. You want your little group of people to be in
Yes.
power. That's what I'm just trying to that argument I'm trying to present.
No, awesome. And I definitely appreciate you coming on here, man. It's been,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, no, like I said, like that type of stuff is, like the thinking and the objectives, and talking about the individualism, and obviously Rand. I mean, she's one of my favorites. But like that is, it's key, and we need more people thinking like that. And, we just need more engaging thought, and
Yeah,
that is so key, because I feel like it'll take helping ease a lot of people's anxiety.
that's what it's all
Yeah,
about.
because everybody's so anxious these days about everything. Like that would really kind of help
I mean,
level it out a little.
if you don't know, what choice do you have but to feel anxiety? Like, if you're not even trying to know, you seem like a curious person, right?
Always, always.
Right. And so sometimes something's going to pop up in your life and you're going to say, oh, well, why did that happen? And then your curiosity is going to take you down a path to figure out some understanding. There are people when things happen, there's no question. There's no, they don't even ask the question, well, why did this happen? And now they can't avoid it happening again. They can't fix any problems in their life. Basically, negative things are waiting for them. And the same negative thing could happen to them over and over and over again because they've taken no steps to correct it. They're not reflective, they're not curious, they're not anything. And so what do you do when problems could pop up from anywhere but feel anxiety about it?
Right. No, right. I mean, I you're spot on, man. But,
Yeah.
again, I appreciate you being on here.
Thank you.
You know,
Appreciate it, Joe.
you want to just shoot everybody a quick message again about your book so they catch it at the end
Thank
as
you.
well as the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. So the book is America's Ethical Archetype. You can find it at Amazon.com. It's there, paperback or digital copy, audiobook as well. My website is DamienTDubose.com, DamienTDubose.com. I'm on all of the websites and Googles and Facebooks and all of those things. It's either Damien T. DeBose on Damien Turns DeBose on Facebook, Damien T. DeBose on Instagram, and some other ones I can't remember right now. But yeah, please check the book out and send me and let me know what you think. You can give me a review and or just send me a message and let me know. I'm appreciative and I'll respond.
Yeah, guys, check it out. I mean, obviously, this is some good stuff to read. Good stuff to check out. I'm always about the engaging thought.
Thank you. Yeah,
But all
no,
right,
we need
Damien.
that. We need that.
Yeah, I appreciate your time today.
No, thanks, Joe. I appreciate you.
All right.
Thanks for having me
You have
on.
a good one, man.
All right, you too.
Thank you.